Okay, so the maniac is back. I'm talking, of course, about Stephen Guilbeault. Today, he is discussing Canada's new electric car mandate. The rationale is simple, though they'll never admit it. They don't want us to drive. Here's what he said.
Thank you very much, Julie, and thank you, Joe, for that warm welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. I want to thank many of my parliamentary colleagues who are here today, including Ministers Tassi and Anand, as well as MPs Francesco Sorbara, Majid Jawari, Rob Oliphant, and Julie. Oh, Julie's not arrived yet, but Julie Jesuit will be with us shortly, I'm told. And as Joe has shown, the atmosphere here at George Brown is electric. What an ideal place to be talking about the transformation underway in Canada.
The transformation is underway in Canada because Guilbeault and his band of radicals makes sure that it's underway. It's not a natural transformation. It's not a transformation that the free market would encourage. Instead, it's the transformation of radicalized men and women, again, like Guilbeault, wanting to turn this planet into one where men cannot flourish. Why? Because they serve Antichrist.
Just a few minutes ago, we met with some faculty and students from the Electric Vehicle Technician Program, one of the largest continuing EV technician training programs in Canada. They know electric cars are the future.
Again, they're the future because government is making them the future. Under normal, rational circumstances, this wouldn't be the pathway that people take.
They're skating to where the puck is going, preparing for careers with good paying jobs. But they're also doing it from a place of concern.
I also am concerned. I am concerned about the future, just like apparently Mr. Guilbeault says these students are concerned about the future. Because when we look at what Guilbeault and his radicals are doing, it ought to make us concerned. If we love freedom, truth, justice, honesty, righteousness, and so on, what this Liberal government is doing should make us very concerned and must spur us to action.
About the world they're leaving to the next generation, a world with more frequent and extreme weather, with high cost of living and unsustainable levels of pollution. But the choice they're making with their careers gives us hope. Young people like those studying at George Brown are driving towards the solution we need to build a more sustainable and prosperous future.
The best way to build a sustainable future is to let the free market work. Thank heavens, for example, that oil and gas exist and that we're able to harvest it. Think about the difference in sustainability with oil and gas versus without. All you have to do is look at those communities, those civilizations that didn't have oil and gas versus the ones that do, and then look at how long, for example, lifespans are in those respective nations, or what the quality of life is like in those respective nations. Can you imagine, for example, if we didn't have helicopters, water bombers, fire trucks, and so on, all powered by oil and gas, diesel, to fight fires? Can you imagine what the wildfires would have been like? What are we going to do? Take an electric fire truck into the middle of the forest to fight a forest fire?
The Government of Canada is right here with you. Over the past number of years, we've doubled down on support for clean technologies, helping people with energy-saving home renovations and heat pumps.
Remember how ridiculous those heat pumps are, especially in Canada. They don't work under what, -4? Once the temperature dips below 0, or a few degrees into the minus centigrade, those heat pumps are totally inefficient and they don't work as operated. Oil and gas, however, is cheap, abundant, and heat is on demand. Power is on demand. It works whether it's +30 or -30. More than that, we refuse to use that Orwellian language of Guilbeault, clean energy. It's the worst because it insinuates in our minds that oil and gas and other forms of energy that work so well are dirty, and they're not. That's nonsense. Because of oil and gas, we're able to make our world cleaner than it's ever been before. Look at the difference between ourselves and the Industrial Revolution, for example. Thanks to oil and gas, we have time to clean up our streets, we have time to cut our grass, manicure our yards, and make our society as clean as possible. What makes it dirty, in large part, is socialism, like Guilbeault's socialism.
building a clean electricity grid, putting a cap on the pollution from the oil and gas sector. All of these things means the creation of good-paying jobs while tackling the climate crisis we face.
It actually means the destruction of Canada. It means we'll be freezing in the dark in our basements, if we're able to live in our houses still, because we won't have access to the power that we need.
And that's put us on track to meet our climate goals. As part of that strategy, we have a comprehensive plan to build a robust electric vehicle supply chain and supporting infrastructure. Today, we're announcing the next step in this plan, the electric vehicle availability standard that drives Canada towards all new light-duty vehicle sales in Canada to be electric or plug-in hybrid by 2035. This includes the interim goals along the way, beginning with 20% of all new vehicle sales be EVs by 2026.
This is completely and utterly socialist. It's intolerably socialist. We have to do something. This is wrong. Government needs to remove itself from the market. They hate our way of life. They hate the fact that we're able to drive wherever we want with vehicles that are powered by oil and gas. That is, government is moving to this electric vehicle future, and they're forcing us to do so because it enables them to exercise so much more power and control than what's otherwise possible. Think about the freedom that's available to all of us because of gasoline-powered cars and engines or diesel-powered trucks. It's amazing. We can drive literally hundreds of kilometers on a single tank of fuel, and then it takes us 2 minutes to fill up at the pumps, and we can do so, drive another 600 kilometers or 700 kilometers. Again, the freedom that the automobile grants us is incredible. It's borderline miraculous. But government, hating freedom, Stephen Guilbeault, hating freedom, doesn't like that. And so instead, they say we're going to switch to electric-powered vehicles where it takes you hours to charge your car and where we can monitor how many times you've charged your car and where we can control electricity so much easier than we control oil and gas. You've driven too far, you've used up your social credits, and therefore you can't drive any further. Your car won't charge. You've driven a long ways, you have to stay at the pump, or at least the charging station, a long time. Our freedom is restricted to a much higher capacity with EVs than what it is with gasoline-powered vehicles.
The standard tackles one of the main barriers to people buying EVs, the limited availability and long wait time.
How about the price? Maybe the price is a factor, and maybe the fact that no one wants an EV. Even if EVs right now were readily abundant, I wouldn't touch one with a 10-foot pole. I like oil and gas. I love my gasoline-powered vehicle. It's fantastic. I don't have to worry about it in the cold. I don't have to sit at a charging station for hours. Instead, I can go where I please, when I please. This is complete nonsense from Guilbeault.
We will do this by ensuring more electric cars come to the Canadian market instead of the US or other markets that have similar targets. It ensures Canadians have access to our fair share of the global supply of these vehicles. Since we started consulting on this, the new electric vehicle availability standard now includes an early credit system to help automakers comply by encouraging them to get more EVs on the market as early as possible.
This is so ridiculous. You might as well be living in the Soviet Union. Like, this is demonstrably socialist. It's so wrong. Whenever government decides to plunge its grubby little hands into the market, it causes disaster. We're turning this nation into Venezuela. Actually, we're turning this nation into something that isn't a nation because first, we're allowing anyone and everyone to come to our home. Therefore, it's not our home. And secondly, we have these leaders in power who want to turn this country into a post-national state, into a super state where borders no longer exist.
And even next year, and to build more charging infrastructure. This will also help Canadians with the cost of living. EVs are quickly reaching cost parity with their gas-powered alternatives. As new model of electric sedans, trucks, SUVs, crossover, and more keep coming on the market. Almost all industry projections show that by the end of the decade at the latest, the purchase price of gas-powered and electric cars will be about the same. The Government of Canada offers purchase incentives to help close the gap on new EVs. Many provinces and territories offer these purchase incentives as well. And once you drive the car off the lot, the saving on fueling and maintenance costs are enormous. For example, let's take the comparison of standard gas-powered hatchback compared to EV's alternative with current market price, like the ones we have here. Over a 10-year span, the gas-powered car costs you over $82,000 during its lifetime, but an electric car would only cost about $50,000.
Does that, for example, take into account the tax that we pay on fuel? Like if fuel's $1 per liter before tax, after tax, it's what, $1.45, $1.50, more than that, depending on what province you live? Does Guilbeault take into account facts like that? Oh, most certainly not.
That's over $30,000 in savings for Canadians. That's because the electricity you buy to power your electric vehicle is much cheaper than gasoline and not subject to the volatility of international oil prices. And the maintenance cost of EVs are a fraction of internal combustion cars.
Unless, of course, the battery dies. Like, all of this is so subjective, nonsensical. There's nothing worse than when government decides to predict the future or tell us about the market right now, because they're always wrong and they always make ridiculous assumptions. Let's suppose, for sake of argument, and I'm not saying it's true, but let's suppose for sake of argument that it costs $10,000 more to run a gas-powered car versus the exact same electric-powered vehicle over its lifetime. That doesn't mean we're going to choose the electric-powered vehicle. There is, for example, benefit in guarantees, safety, the assurance that a vehicle is going to work in the cold, fueling fill-up times, and so on and so on. And all of those benefits accrued for many people eclipse the apparent savings. Again, I'm not saying that's true, but supposing it's true, eclipse the apparent savings of EVs.
The benefits from electric vehicles go beyond saving the climate and consumer cost. They also mean sustainably cleaner and healthier air. We've known for a long time that air pollution from gas-powered vehicles has detrimental health effects and increases the risk of serious illness in children and older people. Imagine a world in which there was no pollution from car smog.
Well, we wouldn't have cars. And we can imagine a world. It was like that 100 years ago, and it's not a world we want to return to. I very much prefer the benefits that are generated by automobiles than living in a world without one. I can't imagine my life without a car. Even, for example, trying to drive to the hospital if I was sick. Think about the difference of that versus taking a horse. What a ridiculous comparison.
Or what a difference that would make to our quality of life.
It would. It certainly would, and the quality of life would dramatically decrease.
It is a very exciting prospect, especially for any Canadian living near major roads or in busy cities. Aujourd'hui, notre gouvernement annonce la prochaine étape de notre plan visant à construire une chaîne d'approvisionnement.
We don't need to listen to any more. Guilbeault's insane. Like, he's totally insane, and the whole Liberal government is totally insane. They hate freedom. They hate that we have the ability to drive wherever we want. So they're trying to exercise more control by introducing EVs, moving our country to a more socialist, controlled nation, if it's going to be a nation at all. We can't just sit on our hands. We can't do nothing. We have a moral obligation, both to ourselves and to our children, to justly, righteously, legally defend what's ours, our freedom, and stop this contemptible advance of socialism from crushing our nation.